and welcome here to the IMSA iRacing series for RaceSpot Friday Night Prime Time. And of course, your host of action here this evening. It is myself, Cameron Roger, Justin Prince alongside me, and Dane Baird doing the production of this RaceSpotTV broadcast. And we're looking forward to, of course, as ever, a 45-minute race in the top split of this series. And I can tell you, we have a pretty stacked grid today, so should be a whole lot of fun. As ever with this championship, we come to some very interesting tracks, but nonetheless what we had last week at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. But we come back to a bit more of a normal road course circuit here for the Sebring International Raceway before we close the season with Mugello, Motorland Aragon, Circuit Gilles Villeneuve and Silverstone over the next 4 to 5 weeks. But focusing on today, it is of course Sebring, a very famous track in this sort of racing, and we continue as always with the three classes that you'll be used to seeing in these championships. Of course, the GTPs, the LMP2s and the GTDs. There you see, of course, the four main manufacturers in the GTPs. Of course, as ever, just one LMP2 and a whole host of GTD options as well. So it's great to see how these drivers are going to be uncovering this very, very bumpy track indeed. We just got a few minutes left in the qualifying, but while they round that off, Justin, it's good to have you alongside me once more, and it's a great track to come racing, and hopefully we get a nice race today.
It should be a very nice race, to say the very least, because it's a track where many drivers have experience at, especially when it comes to special events, but also in general, because if you are a road racing league, 9 times out of 10, if you're amongst some of the top groupings of leagues, you're coming to Sebring to battle it out in your respective road cars. So if you are in this top split and have never driven at this track before, good luck. And you'd be one of the very few. But it's going to also be the type of race today over the course of just 45 minutes where it's not as simple as just pace it out and be patient. If you're up at the front, you're battling for the lead immediately. If you're in the back, you're trying to battle from the back to the front as fast as possible. You don't have time to wait it out.
Yeah, you certainly don't, especially as we have 11 GTPs, we've got 13 LMP2s, and then a whole host of GTDs as well. So plenty of drivers. And Justin, there is, I think, 3 10K drivers in this race today, and so many 9K as well. The field is pretty stacked. So despite being more of an open sort of session and not a league as such, we've got some really top level drivers, and it's good to see that they the top level drivers come out and still put in their efforts in these races.
Yeah, the SOF potentially, based on the projections across the field, somewhere around the 6,000 to 7,000 range here today, because you have in GTD alone, in the class you're looking at right now on the racetrack, you have the lowest of the classes per se, but you still have Maxim Sodov, you have drivers like Dennis Grabowski, who's shown some good pace over the years. You have some of those from Apex SimTech, for example, like Philip Burswill in this respective class. Sven Haas is currently the bottom of the pylon for the qualifying group. But then you talk about the prototypes. You're talking about drivers like Casey Kerwin, Vlad Kimachev, Alexander Spitz, Perislav Limanek, Jaden Munoz, and many more. It's extremely stacked in both GTP and the LMP2s throughout today's field.
It's going to be fun to see how they navigate their way through the traffic in those prototype classes. But in the GTDs, of course, we have one of the top drivers on the system, 10.9k I rating, and coming across the line in his grid and go entry is Sven Haase. And is he going to improve himself up towards the front? Yes, he had by 0.3 of a second. That is a big margin up there from Solotov in second place, just showing the speed and the experience that he's got.
And expect him to be very much so a contender for today's race with the speed he's showcased already here today. 0.3 quicker to the rest of his respective class in qualifying. But with that being said, checkered flag on the track. Just 8 minutes to set 2 laps today.
Yeah, certainly. It's a short and tricky qualifying session around here, especially with some of the potential track limits and just the bumps as well. Very tricky circuit to catch you out. But it's looking like we have 47 cars on the grid today, and it's looking somewhat biased in some of the manufacturers. Top 6 in your GTPs are all Acuras, and top 6 in your GTDs are all the Lamborghini Huracan Evo as well. So maybe a couple of chassis just showing their strength around this Sebring International race, but we do have one of the Cadillacs out there as well, Case Cohen, driving that one, and of course a whole host of different ones of the GTDs as well. A few drivers actually not setting some lap times as well, so yeah, they'll be starting from the back, and they'll be needing to work their way through their class and try and get up towards the front. But we are of course expecting a pit stop. Despite it being 45 minutes, we have a shorter tank, so therefore yeah, they'll be coming in towards a pit stop. They won't have the fuel to get to the end of the race, so that's always a bit of a fun one, Justin, to see a bit of strategy even in a sprint race.
Yeah, that's going to be the interesting part of today is, can you time up the stop just right? Can you make sure you save maybe that extra lap of gas as well for today? Be able to save an extra few seconds. That could potentially, based on how close some of these drivers are in qualifying, and in turn expecting how the racing to be up front for these respective classes to be, it could be the massive difference maker between win or lose.
Here's your grid for today. Munoz and Spets for Williams on that front row. Just 26 thousandths covering those two. Lemnick, Berman, Deck and Bonnie round out your top 6. Then we have Kerwin, Lopez, Mihaman and Rich inside your top 10. And then Kimbachev and Patrick Wolf round out the 12 cars up there towards the front of your GTPs. And one final more with Paulo Munoz as well in your 13-car grid for your GTPs. And of course, onto the LMP2s where we have Van Erven on that pole position with Patel alongside him, just 1/10 covering them, with Rabier, Figueroa, Murdoch and Smithers rounding out your top 6 in that category. Then we move on to Figueroa in 7th place, Gomez in 8th, Charles and Hero into the top 10, and then Steinberg and Wayne Bilk rounding out your top 12 of the LMP2 category. And then a couple more drivers with David and Albert rounding out that one. Just 1 second covering those top drivers, so certainly a very close grid indeed. Then onto your GTDs, run through the sort of top half of them. We got Haase and Soldatov on your front row with Lanzini, Lau, Godoli and Konahi inside your top front 3 rows there. And just despite a bit of a gap there towards Haase, very, very close times in between. Van der Grip in 7th place there, Bobrovsky in 8th, with Bereswell in P9 and Jack Thompson inside P10, Shilcock and Eliash inside your top 12. And we'll let the rest of the GTD grid run the way through because there's quite a few of the drivers in there. As I say, a few drivers towards the back of these classes not setting lap times in that qualifying session. The likes of Patrick Wolf and Paulo Munoz as well at the back of that GTP field. But 45 minutes is coming our way, Justin. What can we expect, especially be a bit quieter in the first couple of laps, but once we actually get into some traffic as well, potentially could cause some issues around here?
I'm expecting that to cause some massive issues, to be the very least, here today, because traffic management could be the make or break, especially in the first 5-10 minutes, even 15 to 20 minutes of this respective race today, because all it takes is you have a cluster of 5 GTPs, let's say, reach the back end of the GTs, and that could potentially be what breaks the pack up or cause the pack to completely implode. But also, we talked about how there's not too much time to be able to work around here. If you're up at the front, you're looking for the lead early, then maybe save from then on out. If you're in the back, you have no choice but to push and hope you have the raw pace. In our words, key number 1, qualified well. If you don't have key 1, keys 2 and 3 going to be very, very difficult here.
Yes, it is a tough one where, despite the track having sort of 5 straightaways as such, of course a lot of them have kinks and bends in them around this track, but there's 5 long flat out sections, and you would think it's sort of an easier track in that regard, but it really isn't when it comes to overtaking your right track position as ever. Especially in these high level competitions, is very, very key, and it's going to be a difficult one when you see just a 10th or so between some of the drivers. Certainly is a bit more difficult. And as we're saying, in the GTP category, everyone in the accurate apart from Casey Kerwin in Cadillac. So in terms of that as well, cars and chassis is going to be absolutely identical. Apart from that, one driver in that yellow Cadillac just weaving in the sort of the fourth, fifth row there. A little bit further back, then of course we have separated classes here, so the LMP2s will be rolling around a little bit later with Van Erven and Petit just leading that pack a little bit further around. And just a reminder, Haase and Soldatov on your front row of your GTD category. But we come round Sunset Bend, the infamous bumpy corner, and the final one here at the Sebring International Raceway. To come and start the 45 minutes at Sebring International Raceway is RaceSpot Friday Night Primetime for the IMSA iRacing Series. And let's see who is going to come out on top. Jaden Munoz from your pole position has an absolute jump at the front there. Of course, all goes good as we get towards the green flag. Case Cohen on the inside in that yellow machine, trying to look down the inside as we go 3 wide for a moment in time. But it's all good as Spets follows through in second place and Lamanek in third.
And a clean start up at the front is exactly what I think most people wanted to have happen in GTP. For the LMP2s, pretty simple. Have that same case. They're racing a little bit more aggressively, though. Look at Arrow nearly pushed off the racetrack in that red number 12 machine. Everybody else got through pretty cleanly.
Yeah, nice start from both of the prototype categories. As of course, the GTDs in the background will be making their way up towards turn 1. Look at the lead that Sven Haase has got, though. About half a mile he's got in towards turn 1 there. An amazing jump on that green flag as we go almost single file in towards turn 1, catching the whole mid-pack sleeping. So that is a great start of him as he can work his way through turns 3, 4, 5 and the very important section on towards the Big Bend. But back in your GTPs as well, Munoz is still holding on very nicely towards the front, but Spets is getting quite a bit of pressure now from Lamanek.
Yeah, and expect leapfrog to potentially come into play here too if there's any slip-ups at this point, because obviously if you're Spets, keep it simple. Keep up to Munoz, work and try and lift a little bit, stay in the draft. Even with the bobbles right now, the speed's right there at the moment. But if you're amongst those, say, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th in the queue, I'm expecting drivers like, say, Casey Kerwin to chew their way through the field like they're Lightning McQueen.
That was it's actually good if you watch this Fenske Racing League. Now we also do here on the RaceSpotTV a lot of drivers with the Lightning McQueen and similar cars liveries actually last night. A bit of a retro round is quite good. But yeah, also for Case Cohen then, that yellow machine looking very good, standing out the field as we have the first lap completed, and all of the pole position drivers remain the same. In fact, the top 2 in each class also remain the same, so very stable there on that first lap. But as ever in this championship, we'll be seeing a pit stop around the halfway mark, so it depends exactly when you want to do that. Are you going to save a bit of fuel, try and save some time in your pit stop, or are you just going to go flat out and try and open up those gaps towards the front? It's in a very close and tightly contested categories. It's going to be very, very difficult to try and pull away in some of these situations, but it's looking very nice, very clean for these GTPs so far.
Keep in mind, you have the teammates in GTP 1 and 2. You have Munoz that it's a little bit harder to tell, but that's more so the new Fanatec paint scheme look that they're trending this year, or the black scheme. It's the more natural chill blast in what we've normally seen, the white and bluish when it comes to Spets. Hence why there may be some confusion watching on for a couple of those, but this is actually a good thing for even a race like this, because you could just say over the radio, okay, let's get some laps in. Let's see some data. Let's see if we can keep away from the rest of the group. Let's work together and gain some I-rating.
Yeah, you definitely want to have some friends and some teammates. Doesn't matter what the race is. It's always good when you can have that extra bit of communication, as you say. You just have a bit more control over the race, and I'm sure they'll be looking on their relative menu and trying to see where the gaps opening up behind. Is everyone coming along in the train? Are they staying in that draft? And are they following through? But I don't think he's going to be worrying too much as he works his way up towards the front. Is Munoz, but a little bit further back is Case Cohen in the yellow Cadillac on the back of Vlad Kimachev coming up towards turn number 1. He did have a look up the inside back on that first lap of the green flag, but was unable to do so this time round. So fast are these GTPs through that turn 1 nowadays. With all the downforce that we've got, makes it that little bit harder. But then when you work your way through these twisty corners, coming through turns 3, 4, 5, that is where you have to try and get the jump on your rival and get the draft down this next straight.
Yeah, and that's going to be part of the setup of all this, is being able to see, is there going to be a chance to take advantage of said slip up? Do I in turn even keep in mind, this is what the energy store we're talking about to the LMDH/GTPs, Do I elect to use a little bit more of the energy modes, try and play things out, try to close things up quicker? What do you do to try and completely close up the respective gaps here? To be able to try and see if you can make any passes here. It is very tricky. We've already seen circumstantial-wise to be able to get close to someone today, it looks like so far, let alone get a side-by-side move already.
Yeah, definitely not the most side-by-side track that you would see over the whole calendar, but it's such a fast track and it's so fun to race just by yourself, let alone when you have the other cars around you. And of course, later on in the race, we will be getting some of that traffic come into play as well. A fairly decent-sized gap between the classes around this track, so there'll definitely be quite a few passings by the time we get a little bit later on. We'll take a look back at your LMP2s where Matthias van Erven is still leading the way in the number 20 machine. Kash Patel is staying fairly close to him though, but similar to the GTPs, they're just slowly spreading out just a little bit, about half a second or so between all of the drivers as they work their way down in single file formation down this back straightaway. And of course, is looking fairly nice in that field. Just looking at a couple of the drivers who didn't set lap times in qualifying, they're still towards the back of their classes. So yeah, not too many movers on those first couple of laps, but certainly working their way through nicely for now.
Yeah, and of course, there's amongst those who works and has worked with a lot of different organizations, including with Roman Grosjean's esports team. Today running with the esports logos on the car, but so far been able to control things. Keep in mind, compare that to what's going on in the GTDs. In the heart of the pack, if you're drivers like Kabrowski, the pressure's on to make passes. If you can't live up to the pressure, you get spun.
Yeah, that was a little bit too late. Got the pressure on his front axle, front right wheel there, and unfortunately just having all the weights there. As soon as you get a bit of a tap, the rear is so light it just goes around, and that was a bit of an unfortunate move, but it was also a little bit of a late dive there in towards turn number 5, and unfortunately just going around. And it's a shame when it's at the beginning of a race as well, because you go around and everyone's so close together, you don't just lose one place, the whole pack comes past you, and unfortunately he's dropped quite a way down to the back of that 20 car GTD field. So it's looking rather more difficult for him now as we get our way in towards this race. And in your LMP2s, a couple of the race clutch entry drivers just trying to work their way, but look at the gap that is coming up ahead between Gomez and Figueroa, and they're starting to get a little bit too much. They're bunching up behind.
Yeah, they're losing a lot of time, actually. Remember that 16 machine and Figueroa for race clutch nearly got pushed off the racetrack on the opening lap. He's lost a lot of ground since then and now has a choo-choo train just forming up and queuing up behind. 147.7 last time by the lead group is running up to 0.2 of a lap quicker. If your drivers like Smithers, like Benjamin Figueroa, and the rest of this pack, you have to sort something out. It looks like Race Clutch wants to break things up a bit. Contact to the wall.
Oh, this is so close up the inside, but they've made it stick. That is such a high-risk maneuver. The headlights being flashed there in the background just to show the slight annoyance of that. But it was a clean move, and it was done nicely up towards the inside of turn 1. And now was a crucial move to try and get past as the drivers all back up in behind. And Figueroa manages to get past and follow his teammate down the road. And that is certainly just showing you how difficult it can be. But here's Patrick Wolf trying to get his way further inside the top 10 in your GTP field. So some moves starting to open up.
And keep in mind, Wolf is amongst the very few who didn't qualify today. In fact, him, Munoz, and Harry Gaylor were the only drivers in the entire field not to set times. Now, keep in mind, with them being GTPs in the first of those two names, they don't have to start behind all of the GTDs. That'd be crazy. It's not 2020. But it's still good pace being showcased by them to be able to slice through as welcome the traffic o'clock. It's time to go crazy.
Oh, I love this first run through traffic. It's awesome to see the GTPs having to think, oh, do I go in between two GTDs? It's so risky. But sometimes you have to do it as we ride on board with Pete Berryman. And look at this, 3 GTDs up ahead of him. He goes to the left-hand side, manages to slide his way through. Fortunately, they're not overtaking each other. And in the background as well, trying to see the driver, Valentin Boni, also sliding his way through. But oh my God, you have to be very, very close in some of these battles, and you have to really start taking the risks if you want to not lose time to the cars ahead.
Communication's key. Having self-awareness is extremely key. Being able to keep an eye on your relative box, extremely key. Having your teammates or spotters watching along, helping you out, is extremely key. Berryman very quickly having to slice and dice out of the preferred racing line to get around all of this as well. That's going to be extremely critical. And remember, a lot of these drivers throughout today do have some of their teammates watching along. Not in official spotter capacities per se, but when you have an SOF this high, it likely draws a lot of viewers, and we're not just talking their own teammates, but every big team. So this is a big opportunity where a lot of teams are taking note on what drivers are doing and the pace they're showing in the traffic.
Oh, definitely. It's in the background. Patrick Wolf has gone off a tower, and that is going to be awkward to rejoin with all the traffic. One of the Audis there just having a bit of a wiggle and losing the rear end, touching the curb. It's such a tricky corner. You're sort of kinking right into the braking zone, and you don't look at that curb that comes up on your left. So easy to make a mistake, and that was so costly as well.
And that's what happens when there's so much traffic. You have very quick reactions. The difference in speed between the GTDs and those GTPs, up to 15, 16 seconds a lap, is basically like standing still. We're talking 50-mile-an-hour difference by the middle of the straightaway. The only team that's really gone through quickly and efficiently has been Williams, and that's been by design because they've been trying to just open the lanes, tire track to tire track.
Absolutely, and it shows because they have so much speed at this moment. Of course, winning the Daytona 24 Hours a couple of weeks ago, and also winning multiple of the special events last year as well. They're really on a roll in this sort of racing, and they're putting so much effort into it. And also the good thing is when you are fast and you're able to get through traffic quickly, it makes your life so much easier because you're at the front, you've got clear air, you have complete control of how you get through the traffic. If you're 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th in line, you're just picking up the scraps in the open doors of where your competitors have just slid through the GTDs ahead of you.
And that's something that, especially for the biggest of the events later on, will be something a lot of these drivers take note of as well for later on to see what to keep an eye on. Keep in mind, it's time for the LMP2s to reach that traffic because Van Urban's been basically running on his own for this entire race. Not anymore in the next 15-20 seconds because Harry Gaylor is the next car up the road.
Yeah, he's got some decent pace. He's got the fastest lap in class by a good 1/10 of a second to Kash Patel in behind. Last lap, though, they were almost identical. So the pace is there from Patel, but it's about a second as it stands. And here in your GTD is a spin around there for the Porsche. And again, a difficult situation because you just can't rejoin at that moment in time. Everyone is coming past you, and you just have to sit there, wait those extra 5-10 seconds, and it's very difficult indeed. But let's see how Van Urban's going to get through the traffic here. This is a classic move to go around the outside there to open up the inside door for Le Mans. In the foreground there, Mercedes goes around. Was there contact from behind, or was that just the contact on the front end?
I think that was a putt from behind there that Kerr ended up having in that contact right in front of your LMP2 leaders. Extremely lucky is the understatement of the day there from what could have been a massive crash there right in front of your LMP2 leaders.
Yeah, and I just wonder if there wasn't contact. One of the LMP2s actually is coming down into pit lane. There might be Alvaro Gomez, but certainly that was an incident in front of your race leaders of your LMP2 category, and that has closed down the gap to just 0.4 of a second now. Kash Patel was actually having a bit of a run as you came down towards sunset. It was enough to make the overtake, but that just shows you how traffic can change things so quickly and how you have to be on top of it, although the gap has opened up just a little bit more as they come through the traffic this time around through the opening part. But here is going to be the onboard from Van Urban. This is about where we cut away from him. Is there going to be contact from behind? I was actually the Lamborghini pushing around the Mercedes, and that was enough for Van Urban just to lose a bit of momentum down this straight.
Yeah, I had to check up and left and take the risk of no momentum there because you keep full throttle there, you're in the wreck, but much those 3 GTDs up in front of them. Meanwhile, PGZ, they're doing PGZ things. It's time to fight even though you're teammates.
And they've got to look out because they've got a competitor in behind them as well. So this is getting very close as they try and work their way through. Patel and Rebier fighting for P2. But of course, they need to look out in their mirrors because Will Murdoch in the 21 machine is going to be getting close as well. Round the outside, they're going to have to go over the 41 machine and up towards the next braking zone. Is there going to be a way to try and get through? But no, look, Rebier has to sit in behind. But this is just going to be losing them some time. And the gap has opened up to 1.8 seconds up ahead. So Patel really is sort of losing a lot of time this lap, and sometimes it shows you how fighting actually isn't the best opportunity for your race.
And it's something to consider too, especially if you're, like we're just seeing before, trying to squabble around like your teammates right in front of Murdoch in this case. It's to where it depends team to team, right? Some teams it's like, we're going to wait until the last lap before we fight. We're going to work together, try and gain time, and then we plan it out for there. A lot of other organizations, though, take the other approach in official races like this. It's 45 minutes. You're racing. It's time to battle. If you have a chance to battle, just don't wreck me. Let's fight it out.
And there's no, I was going to say, there's no sort of second chances sometimes in this type of race as well. Sometimes when that door opens up, you get that one bit of traffic that slows you down, and that's your opportunity to pass. For instance, Patel, if he got Van Erven down in towards Sunset Bend, he would have been leading. But instead, a lap later, he's now 1.5-2 seconds off, and he's fighting his teammate. So things happen very quickly, and if you're not on top of those decision-making events, then you can quickly go back down the field.
Exactly. And I think, too, it's not like you're losing 2 to 3 seconds a lap like your PGZ in terms of battles. I think in this case, they're saying, we're gaining despite the fact we were squabbling a bit here. We have a true shot with the traffic here to catch up to Van Erven, even though we're fighting. So they have confidence, mind you. Remember, this team has showed a lot of good speed at the speed tracks. PGZ's been a team that's tried to make waves and has come close a lot of times to the big events in the past couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely, and they're showing some great pace today. And a similar situation with Williams and GTPs as well. When you got a couple of teammates up towards the front, you can just have that little bit more control of the battles. But it did seem like they wanted to, as in the background, was there a front rear wing off flying in the background at Le Mans? And saw something flying on the grass there. So definitely some contact being made up at that part of the track. I have to try and see if we can work out who was involved in that one, but definitely potentially more contact being made as you see your LMP2s now go past Sven Haase, who's got a huge lead in your GTDs. 5 seconds it's already opened up to in the first 15 minutes of the race.
That's the type of teamwork that makes the dream work, so to speak, but I think I've got your answer on where the damage may have came from. That you're seeing the bumper part. The 18 is the only driver with a meatball flag. And I'm going to have to see how this plays out because Federico Godoy, at least from what I could tell, had no one around him and the bumper just fell off the car.
Maybe some previous damage. And then chunking a curb too much. So I don't know. It is a bit of a weird one if you say there wasn't any contact involved, but there must have already been previous for that to happen. Of course, it doesn't just fall off naturally. So unfortunately, something has happened. He's dropped all the way to the back. I believe we do have a DNF of Brian Krause. We've already had Steenberg and Alvar Gomez come into the pit lane as well in your LMP2s. But into your GTDs, here's Paulo Munoz starting towards the back of the field, making up a couple of places and now trying to get further up inside your top 10. P9 just ahead is Pat Richter in the number 30 machine, and really just his only battle because there's a bit of a gap forming 4 or 5 seconds up ahead.
Now this is what I was talking about, by the way, on the replay. Apparently there was a touch before. That took 5-6 seconds for the bumper to fly off.
Excuse me? That is very unfortunate there. for Munoz, as you say. A little bit of a delayed fall off there, as actually we go back to Munoz because he's diving it down the inside into Cunningham, and what a move that is. Just a nice clean one, textbook for 9th place. Now he's got a bit of a gap up ahead, about 4 or 5 seconds as we were mentioning, so a bit of clean air as long as he can keep away from Richter. But that was very, very unfortunate. As Lanzini, 2nd place in your GTDs, has some contact with an LMP2 diving up the inside, and he's now dropped down a few places.
And that's more than a few places. That's a broken car, because I think he's ended up crashing in Sunset as well, since that contact, I think, may have removed all of the downforce off the rear end. See, there's no back bumper on that car, and he's already picked up by the next quarter complex. He's having a hard time steering, broken axle, and basically is now on the tow truck because by Sunset, he slammed into the tire barrier.
Yeah, big shame. As we get a couple of pit stops, Spets and Valentin Boni from the front of your GTP field are coming in for their pit stop already. As you were mentioning earlier, we do have a shorter, smaller fuel tank in this category, in this race, so there's not going to be tyres, just fuel, enough to get back the 25 minutes left in this race. And of course, everyone will have to do that. So the longer you stay out, the less fuel, in theory, that you need to take to get to the end. So you might save a couple of seconds in the pit stop as Spets rejoins his teammate Munoz, still leading the way.
So this could be an interesting play, because this might be part of the data acquisition method I've talked about, where you're thinking big picture and trying to see what works and what doesn't work for later on in these races. There's a look at the crash we talked about. No back bumper left on what was 2nd place in GTD. Causes the crash and ends off the race in turn for Lanzini. But to get back to that exact point, a lot of these drivers do a lot of testing in the weeks and months leading to special events and to big race events in series. But also, official races are some of the best ways to do it, to a point, because there's no better situation when you're actually against other teams to test, is it better to just light fuel the car and go long, or just short fuel the car on an undercut and just go to the very end from there. This is a test I think they want to see what's going to be better for later on in the year.
Absolutely. It's any race where you actually have racing, if that makes sense, is data. And just doing laps on a practice server isn't going to really get you the proper situation, because you need that traffic. You need people actually pushing the limits of their car. And especially in a race like this, where you have people, you would say, risking their iRating and things like that. So they're going to be taking it seriously. They're not going to be, dossing around at the back. They're going to be trying to do their best performance, and therefore you get absolute accurate data, and you get people trying to win. They're not going to be trying the wrong strategy potentially. So it is a good one, as we get a whole host of other pit stops. You've got Kerwin, Lopez, Pijonen, Richter, and Paulo Munoz all into the pit lane in your GTP field. So they're looking to go, somewhat 50-50 in this race.
And that's with about maybe 13 estimated laps to go, mind you, for these drivers. So there's a lot to consider for the big picture in this. And I think at this point we can see these drivers in turn for GTP based on the field limitations. Normally you go about 40, 45 minutes at the very most. You're talking about potentially going around the 27 minutes in mark. So we're about a couple laps in at most from Munoz, likely based on at least the ballpark estimate.
And it's so difficult to really save a lap of fuel in most situations, but especially here, where in that first stint, we only really got one, now I guess a second run through the traffic. That can help a little bit. And also, with it being such a long track, it's one of the longest sort of standard Grand Prix road course style tracks. That makes it even harder, because you have to save even more fuel just to do one extra lap. As we end one of the Lamborghinis there coming into the pit lane, as Pete Berriman is having to defend from the number 4 of Vlad Kimichev down this front straightaway on the outside. Is he going to try hold it around the outside? No, he's not. Just trying to get Pete Berriman a bit offline to get the switchback up the inside. It's going to be down in towards the braking zone. Side by side they go, wiggling around in the brakes as Pete Berriman holds it on the outside line in turn 3. Manages just about to hold on to that third position as it stands, but Kimichev, he's on the hunt for it.
And Kimichev, remember, was amongst those in the final spots for time in qualifying. Didn't have the best of runs in the qualifying session, But the race pace we've seen for Drago Racing this year has been solid. In the past year and a half, actually, you can argue. Kimachev, I think, knows he's better as the fuel burns off and as the run continues here. Keep in mind, we have clouds over the racetrack, too. The grip levels are going up. The calmer and cooler this track gets with this cloud cover.
And they're on pretty much quali fuel at this moment with just a lap or two left in their stint. So as you say, fastest moments of the race potentially, especially with no tyre change as well. So they are looking very good at this moment in the race. We've still got Munoz and Lemnik out the front. Then we got a bit of a gap back, 5 seconds back to Pete Berryman in this battle with Vlad Kimachev, who are trying to stay out just that little bit longer before making their pit stop. They might save a few seconds. Is it going to work out, or is Spets, Bonnie, etc., are they going to get some sort of undercut, maybe with some track position? We'll have to find out. Coming down in towards the final corner as Munoz going up the inside there of the number 10 machine. That is Alvar Gomez, who's already made a pit stop, but Munoz continues on for another lap.
Yeah, stretching this further along, and this is, again, why it's important to be able to keep in mind not just the amount of testing in for the fuel mileage, also be able to test a little bit. Not don't have to push as hard as the leader, not as easy to save, but Peter Berryman, he's been pushing to try and keep up inside the top 3. And the Berryman now looks to see if he can be able to gain some time to be able to battle for the podium.
And he certainly does. As it stands, is 16 seconds to Spets. Of course, that's going to rapidly go down. And Spets was ahead before, of course, but we want to see the gap. Is it going to be absolutely massive? Is there going to be potential for Munoz to be under any sort of threat? Because there's only about a second between them at the time of their pit stop. Berryman, the only driver this time around to come into the pit lane, which is a very interesting one. A few laps ago, we saw about 5-6 drivers come in. And to be honest, Justin, I'm seeing quite a few more laps difference than I was expecting. I was expecting all the drivers to come in within the space of 1 or 2 laps, but it's been about four laps now, 5 laps since the first driver came in.
Honestly, I don't think Munoz can make it to the end, but again, this is the play. In some series, we've seen where they try and limit the fuel run to about 35 minutes at most. That's about 10 minutes to go. So ballpark, let's say about 12 minutes. This is, again, I think, going to the plan if you're amongst these couple that are staying out. If anything, this is bigger for Lemnik, remember, because he was a fair bit back from the top 2, and he's slowly creeping around that distance. Lost a little bit of time this time by, but is still keeping within at least eyeball distance to the 3.
And I actually agree with you. I think this is the way to go because Spets a 44.5 last lap, whereas Munoz a 43.5, a whole second a lap faster. Of course, being on a lighter tank as well, less fuel in the car, I can do some faster lap times. So traffic really only the potential thing that could be causing some issues, but these guys getting through it nicely. So this is looking very, very good for these guys staying out. And Lemnik as well, also in the 43s compared to the 44s of Spets and Bonnie and Kerwin as well. All of them, everyone who pit is in the 44s, so this is looking good. And as you say, Lemnik might even be able to jump up into P2 overall with the fuel strategy as Marcus Deck comes in, as Maxim Soldatov from your GTD P2 comes in as well.
And it's been a solid race, I will say, so far for Munoz and for Williams Esports as a whole. We touched upon that a lot, yes, but it's also potentially a big one if you're Drago again, because this is something to take note of for later stages on, okay, we did this well in this major SOF race based on raw pace. Let's take note of that, be able to keep that in mind, make some adjustments, then try it the next time for the SOF, see if we closed up the overall speed gap, or if it's just the track, or if it was just a fluke. It comes down to a lot of questions, actually, because if you're amongst those who by the checker flag are, let's say, 10, 15 seconds behind the net leaders in the overall race win for your respective class, that can be a bit demoralizing. I can even say with the drivers watching along for the teammate side, some were demoralized just on the raw pace from the last race as Lemnik comes on in this pit lane.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a devastating gap because Spets 45.1 last lap, 1.5 seconds. So much slower. I think this is going to be good for Lemnik as well to get out in front. So Munoz, Lemnik into the pit lane with a, of course, both drivers well over 9k iRating. Kimachev, though, stays out towards the front, so he's going very, very long. He might save an extra couple of seconds. Here's Spets in the number 2 machine coming out of the final corner at Sunset Bend. Munoz is already underway as Spets comes onto the straightaway, and it's a very short exit there from Munoz, so he should have a good couple of seconds up towards the front. But where is Lamanek going to be? Is he going to be able to get all the way around the outside? Spets can't quite see from that angle, but Spets with the speed and momentum holds on to that second place. The gap isn't quite as big as I was expecting, but so it certainly isn't so bad for him, but that is going to be a bit more of a difficult situation now as he needs to try and get up to speed and catch down his teammate.
And now that's going to be the big test too, is can Spets close up the gap? Can he be able to get the raw pace down? They should be near equal on fuel. And remember, Munoz has basically had the clean space this entire run. Now it's the test of, okay, you have the carrot. It's Munoz. Can he catch up and reel him in on that stick and close him in like he's a fishing rod and be able to get that hook clawed in to reel him in?
Yeah, I was definitely surprised with the gap being a bit smaller, but that's good for Spets because he, as I said, it was a couple of laps, so he's 1.5 seconds off. So he's definitely got the ability and the possibilities to try and get back up towards Munoz. The issue for him is that he's got Lamanek up behind. So if they start battling, then Munoz is just going to go up the way as Kimachev does eventually come into the pit lane with just 15 minutes to go. So he's done half an hour on that tank. So that is a good job from him. So he's going to have basically half a tank left to take, and just saving a lot of time with that. So is Kimachev going to be any closer to Pete Berriman in that battle as Lamanek is getting closer into Spets? And he does actually dive down the inside, a late dive. Spets, of course, just being a bit unaware, maybe saving a bit of fuel, and Kimachev uses that Lamanek, I should say, use that opportunity to dive down the inside and get up into second place.
Nicely done from Kimachev, or rather for Lamanek, I should rather say. But I think that kind of just showcases what I was talking about with Drago Racing, with the later stage pace. They seem to be getting it down. Now it's the true pillar. Oh, well, a couple drivers lost a lot of parts in that run, didn't they?
God, that was a huge bit of error off the back. Yeah, that Ferrari is done with contact into the wall there at Sunset Bend, and unfortunately hasn't quite updated. I want to see exactly where Kimachev came out. Unfortunately, yeah, he is a little bit behind. Marcus Deck actually got a bit of an undercut there, getting past Kimachev in their battle. Pete Berriman as well. So all sorts of battles going on inside the GTP field, just showing you how easy it is for these positions to move very, very quickly. Indeed, as we're seeing some LMP2 pit stops coming in. Matthias Van Erven from the lead has come into the pit lane there as well.
So far, so done. And my GTD has been surprisingly very quiet. Again, I'm not surprised because Ben Haas has been outright dominant on pace, but again, one of the teams that's currently up here, the second place team, Apex Tech, this is a group that has, remember, been trying to add to numbers in the past year or two. Started off in the league scene, running in series like IMSA, starting off and running like the major series, trying to expand out to the oval side. They've seen a lot of changes in the past year as a group. The speed has been coming together, though, for them, to the point where they've been able to make top split events in the major series races and set events. And so far, Lau's been doing a solid job quietly on all this to be able to hold on to this spot, but also be able to maintain a solid tempo, at least on the racetrack. There's still room to grow, but it's a good baseline.
Absolutely, and good pace as well. So not just sort of scrambling to hold on to it, actually solidly looking into that second place is what has happened here. A bit of contact coming through turn 5, and another Lamborghini slides in. I wonder if that was just a bit of panic braking. I think it might have been just losing the rear end on their own and consolidation. Both of the drivers have to continue on, but I'm sure with some damages, Patel, Figueroa, both Figueroas for race clutch come in. So it's LMP2 pit stop time now with 12 minutes to go.
And those drivers are going to have to make sure they hit the marks right. It's just 12 seconds for LMP2. Keep in mind, the GTPs, Most of them were able to at least get on the jacks before the 14 to 16 seconds. It's going to be a little bit more tougher, obviously. Those LMP2s today. And if your team drivers like Araujo, we'll see where they cycle here, already on track in 8th. The Air classmates, they're trying to battle it out for the race off the lane.
They certainly do. The 26 there diving it down the inside. Runs way wide though. But Pablo gets the undercut and will come back down this front straightaway. They're going to have to go left, maybe even right, off those two GTDs in towards turn number 1. Not enough for the positions to swap back around, as they might do up the inside there of turn number 1. That is going to be tight between the two. Contact is made and they go both into the wall. Hard crash there on the exit of turn 1. It never generally works up the inside there, as Pablo has to DNF and go back to the pit lane for some repairs.
And that was a tough spot in the first place to go side by side and let alone go in for the lunge right against the wall. But now, keep in mind, his teammates are still battling. Here's the look from Virgil. He nearly hit the wall trying to get that send there. Now, the race lead for the class. Yeah, Benjamin Vergero. We talked about race clutch. They showed some good speed in the last race. They picked it up and then some for this one with the group. Now it's about playing defense on Patel, Rabier, and then Van Erven, who's dropped to 4th in class.
Yeah, that early pit stop really causing him some issues. And as you say, the race clutch driver jumping up all the way to the front of the field. So that strategy has worked wonders for him as I come up to the back of Sven Haase, leading the way now by 14 seconds in your GTD field. But in your LMP2s, this is all change at the front. And Van Erven, who I'm sure was looking to cruise to an easy race victory, is going to have to fight very hard in these final 10 minutes of the race, as we also look back up towards your GTP field, because Kimichev has got past Deckers in the background. As another driver just sliding their way off the track as they work their way through. As Pete Berriman now also in the foreground is being chased down by the number 4 of Kimichev, who's coming in very fast. Here's a replay up the inside. It was completely different lines from them, but they come together as you try and hug the wall on the inside. And oh, there's further contact with a GTD and maybe even another LMP2 involved on the exit there.
Jack Thompson, believe, is amongst those. We have Alexei Kapanen already out of the race as a result there. That car is definitely what Thompson's car is. This is the other one. Licic. And wow, that was on the road. That was Valentin Boni, nowhere to go.
Yeah, that is a big shame for him. And you're coming around a completely blind corner. You've got the concrete wall on the apex as well. You can't see anything until you get there. And bear in mind, these cars are doing, 200 k's an hour coming through there. Very, very fast speeds. And there's just no time to react. And unfortunately, if you have any sort of issue, it's going to cause a big issue. And up towards the front, we've had some changes as well. Lemonek into 2nd place. And it's all changed. Spets down in towards 3rd. And Lemonek is coming for this race win as well. Munoz, he's under some big pressure now.
Oh, this is a lot of not so helpful traffic. Smithers is not letting anybody go. He just hurt both the leaders' chances to battle at each other here.
This is crazy racing in the IMSA iRacing series. RaceSpot Friday night primetime. Entertaining as ever. 8 minutes to go. And the battle for the lead is this close towards the front. We got Lemonek chasing down Munoz on towards the Ullman straight now and in towards Sunset Bend. They got an LMP2 to navigate as they get towards the braking zone. A little bit of a gap has formed there for Munoz, enough to hold on and to defend. And of course, Spets isn't completely out of this in the background. He's only about a second and a half back if these two start battling massively and losing themselves time as we're getting up towards some of the drivers continuing on in this race in the LMP2 and then the grid and go of number 1 Sven Haase. They dive up the inside there, and this is going to be a big moment of the race if Lemonek can try and find his way past. He's getting close in towards the braking zone, but the traffic there just blocking the way that he wanted to go.
Oh, blocking and then some. David just about chopped off the nose of Lemonek. That's absolutely demoralizing in that case, and that could hurt Lemonek here for at least the next few laps. He's going to need to hope for a lot more help on the traffic side, especially with that amount of hold up trying to get off the corner.
Yeah, this is awesome to see how the race can change. It's been a race of two halves in both categories, the GTPs and the LMP2s. The GTDs are a little bit more stable, although Solotov has actually dropped down to 5th place in class from 2nd place earlier on. So it is actually quite close there inside your top 5 of the GTDs as well. So all three classes having some major battles up towards the front positions. Figueroa still leads from Patel in your LMP2s, but Munoz is now a little bit more comfortable in this GTP field. It's gone up to 7/8 tenths of a second due to that traffic, and now Laminate needs to push down for maybe a pass in the final couple of laps.
And that's going to be the key word, in a couple laps, because we're looking at an estimated 4 to go at the stripe for the GTPs. Same can be said basically when it comes to the LMP2's pace potentially. The pressure has to be on here if you're Benjamin Figueroa, though, because Patel, he was leading a lot of that time previous, is keeping him at bay, and Patel's trying to nearly drag into the wall with how hard he's trying to send it to keep up with this red number 12.
Yeah, pushing the limits is all in the background there. 3rd place driver Rabier just going way wide as they all push and all talking or pushing up towards the wall. Goes Laminac up the inside. We've seen crashes here in the LMP2s, so the number 4 has to back out of that one. As one of the LMP2s is always trying to re-overtake them, such is the slower run. But as we come down towards turn 3, he keeps that momentum going and he goes up the inside to try and take the race lead. And actually, my bad, this is Kimichev on Berryman for 4th place. And Berryman, it needs to hold on around the outside there of the Big Ben, but Kimichev putting it on the line and up the inside. That was going to be, I'm surprised that Berryman got such a bad run off the outside line there at turn 1, but they were giving each other space, some nice hard but fair racing, and in the end is Kimichev getting that 4th place.
That gets right back to the point of Kimichev's pace. We've seen right before the pit stop window, it's about that same time. Although Berryman, I think, is pretty much already indicating, based on those racing lines, he wants to go the next chance he gets to be able to make a switch back here. Not going to be too easy with the Drago Racing cars being the hottest they've been in this race being right now.
And Marcus Deck, of course, on the back of this battle too. So it's a 3-way battle for what is 4th position. We've got a 3-way battle for 1st. So the Spets actually has dropped off by another couple of seconds. So he hasn't got the speed in this final second part of the race. Up the inside, Berryman is going to go there to try and keep on the back of Kimichev onto this back straight. You can see Spets in the white Williams machine not too far up the way. So definitely some of these battles are not over with 4.5 minutes remaining, about 3 laps to go of this race here at Sebring. Has been 45 minutes of action and they're going to continue going on, but that was a brutal, savage move there from Kimichev, as he really wanted to get that move, and it's worked out well because he's starting to pull away from Berryman.
Exactly, and I think again that comes down to pace. What are track limits? Let's just use the XY, don't we? At this point, Kimichev's like, forget the 1X. I have enough room.
Yeah, I guess it gets to that point, doesn't it, of the race a little bit later on, where you maybe can do a cheeky 1X here and there, but it's not over for all of these drivers. The cloud has come over the track, and the pace, of course, increases with that, and Patel is not giving this up for the race lead. Figueroa for Race Clutch in the number 12 is holding on, as he has done since that pit stop. Patel hasn't been able to find a way past, but as the laps count down, the opportunities count down as well, and he's now getting closer and closer. Just a few tenths of a second more he needs to try and get there to the race lead, but it's going to be difficult with how close and how tight these battles are. And interestingly, Van Erven from that 4th place hasn't been able to challenge and show the pace that he had in that first stint.
And I did ask Sean Campbell, who's watching along since he raced for his team, Race Clutch, last race, what the mindset is right now for Ben. He asked him because he wasn't sure. There was one word he sent back: drive. That's the focus if you're Ben right now. They know it's not necessary to get the win, per se, to get the good I rating. Obviously, you want to get the win, though, if you're holding on, coming at under 3 minutes to go and 2 laps to go, and right now showcasing this car can be quick if it's able to hold on to clean air. Patel is losing ground and dropping again.
Yeah, losing a few tenths over the last half a lap or so. Frigero is looking very good in that 12 machine to hold on to your LMP2 race lead. But here come your GTP leaders. The two prototype classes merging with 2 minutes to go in this race as the battles for the lead in both categories rage on. Munoz has kept that gap. It went up to 7/8 tenths and he's managed to keep it as Munoz holds onto the racing line there around the outside of Van Erven and gets the nice braking in towards the hairpin. And Lamenek is really going to struggle as they go through these traffic to chase down. As long as Munoz can get them on these straightaways and get the nice clean overtakes and don't really lose any time in the corners, which is perfect timing of the traffic for Munoz as he holds on with just about a lap to go in this race.
And Munoz is getting all the luck of the traffic here too. For Patel though, he's the next driver that's going to be attacked by New Munoz, and both of these battles for the win are about to really converge in a big way, because if Patel wants to get this done, he needs to be aggressive. He's already thinking aggressive as the GTP leader closes.
Yeah, he's trying to get Frigero offline, but where is the GTP leader going to dive himself up the inside? Fortunately, once again, it's going to be on a straightaway. This is perfect for Munoz. He barely lost any time, maybe a tenth of a second over that whole lap getting past the traffic. That worked out really well for him. He should have the inside line easily in towards Sunset Bend as he comes through. With just 1 minute to go, it's going to be the start of the final lap of the race. Munoz is looking good, although the gap has come down to half a second. And in your LMP2, Frigero is leading by half a second himself. So we come on to the final lap of the race. These 45 minutes of Sebring have absolutely flown past, but there's still battles for the lead in most categories.
I think if you're Munoz, just hope that the traffic plays nice. Hope that no one holds you up too badly. Just keep it on the road. Don't make any major mistakes. Same can be said for Ben at this point, although it's a little bit different with Patel being closer. If it comes down to contact, don't risk the contact and lose all the I rating for the future going, or in turn lose the potential the points for the championship as a whole here on one move in one moment.
Well, race drivers want the win, don't they? That's a slight momentum loss there for Munoz as we come up the first of the many back straights. Here's Lamenek just closes in by another tenth of a second. It's certainly heating up in your GTPs, but in your LMP2s, Patel hasn't given up on this one. Figero's putting his car in the perfect place though, but they're catching a GTP potentially at the worst time. Up the inside, we've seen crashes here before this race, but he manages to get through at the perfect time. Final lap time with just half a lap to go.
And Munoz at this point can be in clear sailing for the most part here. As long as a car doesn't drop from the sky. Williams Esports, that's a grouping, dominated the speed 1-2 for much of the way before pit stops. 1-3, extremely something to be proud of for this grouping. As long as it stays 1-3, because Kimachev is caught the Spets.
Yeah, he certainly has. Kimachev, a load of pace in this second half of the race. But for Williams, they're not going to care about that just yet, as the number 3 machine for Williams Esports is going to come out of the final corner, and Jaden Munoz is going to take a fantastic victory here, the 45 minutes of Sebring, and he wins here at RaceSpot Friday night prime time. He gets just ahead of Lamenek in a tight battle, and so is just Frigero. He holds on by just 0.3 of a second, with Spets, I think, was also able, by less than a tenth of a second, was able to hold on to Vlad Kimachev, who came in with some massive speed in this second half of the race. Would have been a shame because it would have been able to see what he could have done if he was able to be closer in that first stint. But we look back to your GTD, still half a lap to go, but Sven Haas is going to take victory by about 20 seconds.
And for the most part, it's almost been like an afternoon drive for Sven with the pace he showcased. The only mistake he's really made today, a little bit too much contact to the inside wall coming to the white flag. Where he scraped the wall with that left side fender. That's his only mistake all race. And when you don't make mistakes, it's hard to be beaten.
Absolutely, and I'm just trying to do a bit of quick maths. I believe the soft as such of the top 5 in your GTPs is about 9.5k. Amazing. Yeah, just amazing drivers here coming to race the IMSA iRacing Series RaceSpot Friday night prime time. It has been a pleasure to see those drivers come across the line, and now it's going to be Sven Haas in your GTDs to get the final class victory in that number 1 grid and go machine, as he will take victory by about 20 seconds. Alessandro Leo will follow him through in second place, subject him getting around the final corner of Sunset Bend, and he'll have a fairly comfortable victory of that second place as well, as Konai in third place, I should say, is going to be about 6-7 seconds behind as they get to the line. So Lau takes second, and then in the end it's going to be Matteo Konai will get into third place. But that was certainly some awesome racing at Sebring, just showing you why it is one of the most famous and fan favorites road courses out there, and that is why we have it on the schedule. And certainly the strategy played a big part of that as well. In all categories, we saw some big changes over the course of that pit stop window, of course with the smaller fuel tanks that we have in this series. And we saw some quite big crashes as well. Pablo Rujo diving it up the inside there of turn number 1, but not able to make the pass with Paris Charles, I think it was. They were battling in towards turn 1. And of course, multiple other drivers, Lanzini having a big accident as well, definitely showing you the difficulties of this track. But it was certainly a fun one indeed, with Munoz taking the overall victory with some very fast times as well. I believe he got the fastest lap of a 43.0. But Justin, that was certainly well worth the time and watching. Well, actually, we'll get to the results first, as Munoz there taking the victory, as I said. Lamanek in second place. Spets, Kimachev and Berryman rounding out a fantastic top 5, separated by less than 0.8 of a second. Deck, Kerwin, Munoz, Wolf and Richter round out your top 10. And it was Jaden Munoz there to get the fastest lap on lap number 3 of the race. Pahonen, Lopez and Bonnie round out your drivers a little bit further down in your GTPs. Bonnie, of course, 6 laps down with a crash towards the latter part of that race. In your LMP2s, it was Benjamin Figueroa for Race Clutch taking the victory by 0.4 of a second. Cash Patel not having quite enough in that second stint. Rabier takes third, and Van Erven will be a little bit disappointed to finish 2 seconds off in fourth after leading most of the race in class. Figueroa, Murdoch and Gomez round out your top 7, with David, Bjork and Smithers rounding out your top 10. Just 20 seconds covering those drivers, with Steinberg on the early pit stops there, ending up 30 seconds off. Albert, a minute and 15 seconds, and then the DNFs of Arujo and Charles inside your 14-car LMP2 field. Then your GTDs, your Sven Haase taking victory by 20 seconds. Dominant victory for him, as is Lamborghini 1, 2, 3, 4 with Leo, Canuli and Solotov there inside your top 4, with Beres Will, De Grip, Morpay, Shilcock, Grabowski and Goth rounding out your top 10, with just 8 drivers finishing on the lead lap. With Bador, Gala, Lovrich and Eliash inside your top 14. Godoy, Kaipinen, Thompson, Lanzini, Grain and Kraus rounding out your top 20. And I believe it was just the 20 cars, but a lot of DNFs as well inside your GTD field. But Justin, that was certainly a very entertaining race.
Yes, indeed, especially when it came to a lot of the battles for the win. Strategy was extremely critical today, to say the very least. But also, it showcased who was able to be able to think straight, but also think accordingly when it came to some of the close battles. LMP2 was a good example of that. It came down in that class to who had the better pit exit. And that's sometimes just the big difference. Can you execute in all the stages of the race? Not just can you put a hot lap down to win a race.
Absolutely, and we'll get the schedule up, because of course there's plenty of races still to go in this season. We've had a lot of races already, but we go to some absolutely fabulous circuits. Next week we go to Mugello, very fast circuit once more. That's going to be very interesting with the traffic. Then we go to Motorland Aragon, Circuit Gilles Villeneuve and Silverstone Circuit to round out your 12-week season 1 of 2024. For this race, it's been myself, Cameron Roger, Justin Prince alongside me, and Dane Baird on the production of this RaceSpotTV TV broadcast. We look forward to Mugello in just 1 week's time, when we come back for this RaceSpot Friday night prime time to cover the IMSA iRacing series. We thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed the action, and we look forward to seeing you next time.